A lot of folks here tonight. We had chairs for about 275, but they're bringing more chairs in, so we'll definitely have a packed house here this evening, which I believe is a great testament to our community coming out and supporting. There have been some forums over the years that, well, we could probably have put everybody in one little room and maybe a classroom. So it's great to see all the support here this evening for both these candidates. I just, before we get started, one of the things that I believe always help things go better, that's prayer. So I'm going to ask that you be respectful. We'll just bow in a word of prayer. Lord, we are grateful and thankful this evening for the opportunity to express our freedom, our rights as Americans, and Lord, as Frankfortians. Lord, for us to be able to be here tonight and to be a part of this forum, we ask that you bless the candidates. We ask that, God, you would give them wisdom and guidance and direction. We're thankful, Lord, that we can express our opinions. And Lord, we ask that that would be done respectfully tonight. We ask that, Lord, all the things that are said and done here would bring you glory. And Lord, it would be good for our community. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. Well, speaking of respect, I just want to have a couple of house rules here this evening. We're going to ask that you keep your applause or cheers or jeers to yourself. We're going to introduce the candidates here in a little bit. They'll have 2 minutes to share their opening, and then they will have 3 minutes to close a little bit later this evening. They will have 1 minute rapid-fire questions and answers, so they'll have 1 minute to answer the questions that our panel will be posing to them. And again, we would appreciate that be no clapping, no cheering, simply because we're trying to get as many questions answered as possible, and that just pauses and stops everything. So we appreciate that. We thank you for you being respectful tonight. We know there's a lot of hot-button issues that we'll be getting to this evening, and we want to hear from the candidates, not you. So, quite frankly, so that's the reason we're here. So, if you would appreciate, we would greatly appreciate that, and thank you for that. All right, on to the good stuff now. We've been blessed with 2 guys that have been all here last week, helping us with our city council forums. They're back again. I'm surprised. I couldn't believe that you did both come back. I appreciate that. But Aaron Kennedy with the Frankfort Times. He is the editor of the Frankfort Times. Would you please welcome him this evening? And a man that needs no introductions. He's everywhere. Mr. News Director for the Clinton County Daily News, Mr. Ken Hartman. Tonight we have questions from the audience. We already have several that have been filled out in the form. One of our board members, Don Stock, and will be running around. If you have a question that you want to ask, he will make sure that you have a form. If we've got pens, make sure that you write your question and then get it back to Don. Just raise your hand and he'll come find you. We'll try to keep an eye out as well. And you get your question up here, and we'll make sure that it, not guarantee that it will get answered, but we'll do our best that it will get answered. We're having to also tonight make sure that you're patient with us, as these 2 guys are trying to make sure that there's no redundancy as they have to go through the questions really quick. But we want to make sure that we get as many. And I will tell you, last week at the City Council, we were able to, in one round, about 19 questions, and the other round, about 13 questions, and majority of them did come from the audience, so we greatly appreciate you doing that. Well, we want to get things started. We appreciate our candidates, Lewis Wheeler, who is also sitting city councilman, and of course our incumbent mayor, Chris McBarnes, and we appreciate them being here with us this evening. Earlier this evening, we had a flip of the coin, and City Councilman Lewis Wheeler won the toss, and he is elected to go first, and so he will come and share his 2 minutes, or you can stay where you are. It's up to you guys, whatever you want to do. We'll share your 2-minute introduction. So, Lewis?
Thank you, Shan. Hello, my name is Lewis Wheeler, and I'm running for mayor of Frankfort. This has been one of the greatest honors of my life the last year to meet people and to get to talk to people about the things that are concerning to me. I want to start out by saying I respect the heck out of Mayor McBarnes. Tonight, I've got short time, so I don't want you to think any of my answers are disrespectful. I'm just trying to say the most I can in the amount of time allotted. I was born here in Frankfort, with the exception of 5 years when I was a missionary to Guatemala, Mexico, and Honduras. I've lived right here in Frankfort. I speak English and Spanish fluently. Nearly 11 years ago, I married my beautiful wife, Joanna, with $300 to my name, and God has blessed us and given us 4 beautiful children. I've invested a lot in this community with these children, and I know probably in a room this size, a couple of you might not vote for me. But I certainly hope that none of you think that I want to see Frankfort fail, because I've got 4 kids that I've got to see that they have the best place to grow up and to call home. My kids have been the inspiration for helping me, and my daughters, when I started running, they colored this beautiful heart picture for me. And on the back of it, Hopi wrote, "To the best dad ever. I love you so very much. You're the best for me, and I thank God for you." Lots of people admire what you do for them, and you are definitely making a difference for our family and other people here. If God wants you to be mayor, you will. But if not, you will still make a difference for our family, no matter how many people are mean or how many people hate you. And then as a Johnny Cash fan, I hope you said, remember, love is a burning thing. I look forward to discussing tonight the issues and talking to you, but from the bottom of my heart, I want you to know I'm glad to be here and have great respect for this process. God bless you. Mr. Lewis Wheeler.
I also have great respect for you, sir. Anyone who would put their name out on the line like this, their neck on a chopping block in front of 270 people, some we know, some we don't know, I think that commands a certain amount of respect. Over these past 8 years, I cannot believe how quickly it's gone by. And I can tell you right now, we wouldn't be in this room tonight if it wasn't for our veterans, our active military men and women that are fighting hard on the front lines right now, and those veterans who have done their time to serve this country. So I want to personally thank you. You all are the heroes. I appreciate you so very much. To all the city employees in the room, I look out over this crowd and I see so many great faces, so many city employees. Listen, a mayor could come or go. A him or her, it wouldn't really matter. You know, things could go on, all right? Without you, you're the pulse, you're the heartbeat. Without you, the trash doesn't get picked up. Without you, the heroin dealers don't get locked up. Without you, the alleys don't get graded. Without you, the peacocks don't get fed, even when it's negative 40 degrees below zero in the wintertime. So I want you all to know just how much I appreciate you and how much I appreciate y'all taking me under your wing, because over the past 8 years, you have taught me so very much, and you have commanded out of me such a respect for you, and I don't feel like you're working for me at all. I feel like I'm working for you. And to the people of this community, I want you to know it's been the honor of my life, next to being a Christ follower and a husband to a beautiful wife. Samantha, it's been the greatest honor of my life serving this community. There was a time where Samantha and I talked about it, and we said, we're done. We're ready to cash our chips out. We're ready to go to greener pastures. And I got to admit to you all, that was kind of a selfish imposition that I had. So we did a lot of praying about it. As you all know, faith's a huge part of my life. I know it's a huge part of Mr. Wheeler's life. I think it's the foundation upon every decision that we should be making as individuals need to be made. And we prayed hard about it, and God pulled us right back to this position. We don't know why, but we wanted to give it one more try. So that's why I'm here. I look forward to answering all your great questions, and at the end of the evening, everyone drive home safe. Thank you.
I'll let you clap to get that out of your system, all right? And Lewis has already got his coat off, so we're ready to rock and roll. All right, one more housekeeping note. These little things here that I like to sometimes throw away, if you could turn them off or silence them, we don't need, the Indiana fight song or the baby Boilermakers going off or anything like that. So if you could turn those off, we would greatly appreciate that as well. Things are being live streamed tonight, and we appreciate, again, you to be thinking about that and all of our folks watching at home, and we appreciate you joining us this evening. Jason Wilhite, our Events and Membership Director of the Chamber, is taking care of timing tonight. The candidates will have a 1 minute time to answer the question. He will give them a 20-second warning, and then he'll give them the red card, and we'll be respectful enough to let them finish their statement, but then we ask them to wrap things up so we can get to the next question. One other tidbit is that they can ask or answer the question previous if they want to respond to that, but they first have to ask the question that was posed to them in the present time, and then they can come back to that question, but they still only have 60 seconds. So they are well aware of that, and so we're going to get things started with Mr. Ken Hartman. Ken?
Okay, this question is from the audience. This is for both of you. What is your vision for the city of Frankfort in the next 3 years and 5 years?
And we'll begin with Chris, since Louis started.
My vision for Frankfort over the next 3 to 5 years is to continue to see our industrial park boom. It's not just by happenstance that Frito-Lay announced a $160 million investment in our community last year, going along with the $35 million investment that NHK is being made. When I first ran for mayor, there was a quote that a former editor took from me at the newspaper. He ran it over and over again because I think he thought a little bit he was making fun of me, but I made the comment, I believe we can create thousands of jobs in our industrial park. Folks, I'm here to tell you after these past 7 years, we are bearing down on that. So what I'd like to see is continued AV growth in our industrial park. That's going to bolster the rest of the investments we're making around the city. It's going to grow our assessed value. It's going to drive our tax rates down. And I want to see those investments continue to be made because it protects your job. If you work in the industrial park, the only way we keep your job safe is to continue to create a vibrant, driven, prosperous local economy that will keep the wheels turning, not only bringing new jobs in for people who want to call Frankfort home, but protecting your job that you currently have. That's my vision.
All right, thank you, Louis. And if you don't mind, may I ask, or call you by your first name tonight? Is that okay? All right, thanks.
Absolutely. So one of the biggest things that I'd like to see done is to increase the transparency that we have for people. If you want to follow along, this is going to change the mindset to a positive mindset for people. If you want to follow along with what's going on in the city government, you have to go to the city clerk treasurer's office, and you have to request and pay $1 a page to see what's going on. If you want to see the fund balance, if you want to see what ordinances that we're voting on, things like that. This is unfortunate. You're going to hear a discrepancy between our numbers, and the simple fact is because you can't go on and access that information through our city website. So one of the things that I like to do, I like to live stream our meetings. We have the resources to do that. Another thing that I like to do is all the council packets, Board of Works packets, we'll upload them to Facebook, we'll upload them to the city page, and you can come to a meeting and you can follow along and see exactly where we're at, and there'll be no more discrepancy in the future.
All right, thank you. Erick?
What have you found to be the best way to monitor the performance of your work and share time you had to take corrective action?
All right, Louis?
Well, that's a tough question, certainly. I've done a lot of jobs. I've been blessed to have a lot of talents, and I've been a pastor. I've worked in a factory, I've worked in construction, and I've worked in leadership, both in the church world and in the corporate world. And it's correcting problems and things is something you have to do with prayer. You can't, one of the things that I've learned is you've got to have help, you've got to have advice, you've got to speak with people, and sometimes your knee-jerk reaction when you go to resolve the issue doesn't wind up being the best one in the long run, so you have to be willing to listen to people. So I think when I taught school, there's a situation, I don't want to go into all the details, but where prayer was a major part, and I was able to come to the right conclusion, and one where nobody had hurt feelings, and we were able to get on the right page, and I think that's what's going to happen in the future with the help of the Lord. Thank you.
All right, Chris?
Well, I think basic metrics of a city, something as a taxpayer I would be looking for is what kind of private investment has your leader in the policies that they have put in place brought to Frankfort. Again, Frito-Lay, $160 million. That was the 6th largest micropolitan project in the nation last year. That project was going to be chopped up across Raleigh, North Carolina, Topeka, Kansas, Wisconsin. And we said, wait a second, why not bring it all to Frankfort? And we developed that relationship, and we sold what Frankfort was doing. Now, no, I don't think there's any magic silver bullet for that. I think a lot of things played a role in that. We've deregulated our local government. We've cut the bureaucracy out. We've made it business friendly. We've invested in amenities like Prairie Creek Park. We brought housing in like Nickel Plate Flats. And then also on the public safety side, that's very important to me. Frankfort wasn't even on the safest cities lists here 8 years ago before I took office. Now we're the 8th safest city in the state of Indiana. I'm going to continue to judge my work based upon that. And then also you got to put together a great team. I've got a great team of department heads and board of works members, former business owners, professionals that I look up to each and every day.
All right,
I would like both of you to explain your thoughts on where we are with exactly the city debt. How much is it, and how do you come up with what numbers did you come up with?
all right, Chris.
So on the city side right now, the only debt that we're paying out of City General is our old Stony bond. Okay, so roughly 3% of our spend out of City General every year is on debt. So your property taxes, 3% of that goes to debt. The lion's share of City General goes to public safety. When you crunch the numbers, we spend well over 63% just on salaries and resources, not including health insurance for our public safety employees. So when you look at those property taxes you're paying, the majority of that goes to funding our police and fire department, and I wouldn't have it any other way. We have outstanding debt on Prairie Creek Park. That's being paid for by TIF. That is basically cutting out a portion of the property taxes that our downtown business owners pay and our industrial leaders pay, and we're capturing a portion of that, and by Indiana state statute, that has to be redirected into that TIF area, which is our downtown. And then we have utilities debt, okay? We own a major electric company, we own a major wastewater treatment plant that was nearing 100% capacity. If those investments weren't made, one day you flush the toilets and nothing would happen, you flip the switch on and nothing would happen, and that wouldn't be good.
So I've shared a lot of numbers via Facebook and other people have shared about the debt. I include the utility debt for the simple reason, Lafayette ratepayers aren't paying that debt back. So when your utilities were increased by 62%, it went to you. It didn't go to Kokomo residents, it didn't go to Lebanon residents. So we're nearing the 100 million mark in debt. Right now we're borrowing $10 in the TIF for every one TIF dollar that we have present. Here's an interesting thing. DLGF, Department of Local Government and Finance, they require two unique stipulations that you need to know, voters. The first is that at the end of the calendar year, you cannot have negative balances in any of your funds. And so what that means is that, and it's not unique to this mayor, it's been happening for 50 years probably. At the end of the year, you have to transfer, reappropriate money to make sure all of the funds are at zero, and then the first council meeting of the year, they transfer them back to where they go. Which means if you look at January 1st of every year, it'll always look like a balanced budget, and I'll have to get to the second one later.
All right, Erick.
You each talk about financial. You each talk about fiscal responsibility. Do you feel you are responsible in your personal finances? Are your personal finances a reflection of how you will run the city?
Russ.
Yeah, I believe so. When my wife and I got married, one of the decisions we made was to have kids, if God would allow. And not only that, but she wanted to be the mom to them. So that meant that we're in a society where both mom and dad work full-time. I'm the one that works. I work 60, sometimes 70 hours a week, work 2 jobs. And I owe about $10,000 right now, and everything is paid off. So this is something I've proved that I can manage my own personal finances, and I've proved that I can find creative ways to make sure that we have exactly what we need. So back to what I was going to say, the other thing that DLGF does is on the 30th of June, you have to certify your cash on hand. And if you go back to the 30th of June, you'll find we've twice had a deficit spending. Go look up the 30th of June, 2016 and 17, we had $500,000 deficit spending. This is something that concerns me. We've got to spend less than what we're taking in, and that's it for me.
Chris.
So we're not on Facebook, so we're going to pull it back to reality here. The city is not $95.5 million in debt. Councilman, I have your handout that you've been passing out. You have $28 million for Frankfort Project ConAgra TIF bond. That is not a bond. That's nothing the city owns back. Basically, they pay tax funds, and a portion of those taxes go directly back to them. If ConAgra were to go bankrupt, if they were to go belly up, that is not a bond that's encumbered by the city of Frankfort taxpayers. Then he has pending bonds, police station bond for $9 million, TPA pool bond for $12 million. So that's another $14.5 million right there. These numbers get skewed very, very, very quickly. So I agree, do your homework. And here's what I'm going to tell you, okay? I think it's a pretty darn simple way of looking at it. When I came in office on January 1st of 2012, we had $1.6 million in the bank for City General. That's it. That's the truth. Go talk to our clerk treasurer. January 1st of this year, we had $3.1 million, which correlated itself to a 30% cash reserve. I picked up a 19% cash reserve is what I inherited. Our city is on better financial footing now than it was before. We have smart, responsible spending that we're seeing massive return on.
All right. Thanks.
This question is from the audience and for both of you. What can we do to enforce a stronger code enforcement to clean up our city?
Rick?
Well, what we did was we moved that all over the police department. So we're much more efficient now since the beginning of the year. We've written over 200 warnings and about 190 actual citations as of last Wednesday. So our guys are out there. They're working on blight and squalor in our alleyways, old couches there on the front porch. Jason and his crew out the street department, we're getting ready to have our annual spring cleanup, so that's going to be a great thing as well. But moving that those code enforcement positions over to the police department, having them overseen by Captain Jim Skinner, it's linking those two departments up. What the police are seeing, they could directly correlate that to code enforcement, and then those guys can be just like piranhas and go in there and attack the junk. And I want to make one more comment, too, about our utility rates. In Frankfort, based upon 4,000 gallons a month of sewer and water usage, you're paying $58 here. Councilman said something earlier about your rates being jacked up 62%. That's not true. We're phasing these in over time, so it's less of a hit on you. If you were to live in Lebanon, that same amount, you'd be paying $95.61 a month. Our utility rates are very low, very competitive.
All right. Russ?
Well, not only is it true, I can prove it. I don't pull these numbers out of the thin air, just make up whatever I want. You have sessions where there's 3 readings, you vote on it. This information gets documented and sent to the clerk treasurer's office. The clerk treasurer's office reports to the Department of Local Government and Finance. The numbers on that page, I gave you the documentation. What would help your cause is some proof. Not just saying this is a fact and take my word for it, but actually present proof. Send to people somewhere where they can look and they can see, and then they can reasonably decide for themselves. You know, we voted to raise 6-1, with myself being the only one not to vote for it on the council, to raise your utility rates by 62% over a 4-year period at 15.75% over 4 years. It comes to 62%, and I can prove it. It's black and white.
All right. Back to Eric.
This is a question from the audience, wanting to know about the status of vacant buildings, specifically CVS and Marsh. And they also would like to hear from you on the rumor of Backstep Brewery and Mac Machine.
All right. Lewis?
I don't know about the rumor about Backstep Brewery and Mac Machine. I want you to know I'm not all negative. There's a lot of times I've watched the mayor work his butt off to bring in new organizations. The concern that I always have is just us funding it always through our TIF dollars. I'd like to see our streets receive a lot more help from those TIF dollars. I don't think they all need to go into just one part of town, that they've got to get spread out. And honestly, as long as it's in the TIF district, or as long as they designate it as an economic development location, the TIF money can be spent that way. And so I would like to see us work harder I was talking with the mayor of Lebanon, talked with the mayor of Crawfordsville, and they try to keep over 50% of their TIF dollars freed up so that they can incentivize businesses to come in. It doesn't all have to be paid out of the taxpayer's pocket.
Chris?
Well, to be clear, TIF payers are taxpayers. They're just taxpayers from a certain area of the community. And if we would want to do that, here's why I couldn't support that. If you're going to take Frito's tax dollars and you tell them, listen, we're going to be investing strategically and specifically in things that are going to be bringing more employees back to you, and then we renege on that, and we end up and we spread it out all over the community, because again, remember, statutorily by the state, we're directed how we can spend these monies and how we can't spend these monies. So I think we're spending them prudently. A lot of street paving going on right now, close to $1 million in street paving going on right now. I can tell you that we're getting a lot of hits on the CVS West building. We looked at putting our police department there, but they wanted way, way too much money for that building. There's no way we're paying north of $2 million for that building as a community. So we backed off of that. Sometimes you just got to know when to walk away. Just met with another real estate firm this past week who represented the former Long John Silver's. Hibachi Japanese Steakhouse is going in there, so I know I'm excited about that. I'm sure a couple of you all are as well, but they also represent the Marsh building, and they're getting hits on that. So I think the more beautiful we can make Frankfort, the more jobs we can bring here, we'll see those buildings fill up.
All right, thank you, Ken.
This question is for both of you. How do you plan to move Frankfort forward?
Chris?
Well, I want to continue to invest in families. I want Frankfort to be a family-friendly community. People look at Prairie Creek Park, and yeah, that was a big investment, but we've also been investing hundreds of thousands of dollars in all of our outlining parks, whether it be a new basketball court at Green Street, new ADA accessible playground equipment at Green Street, fixing the historic fountain at the TPA Park, the historic steps, the bird aviary, the petting zoo, the new gravity rail that we have, the new basketball court that we have at Dorners. I could go on and on and on. I think these outlying parks need investment. I want to keep the voltage up on investing back into our roadways. Since I've been in office, we brought in well over $11 million to rebuild South Mash Road. North Mash Road was well on its way to being done thanks to the former administration and their hard work there. And then we captured grant dollars for Washington Avenue Phase 1 and Phase 2. And so from an infrastructure standpoint of our roads, our city parks, our downtown facades, and our housing. I think housing is huge. I'd like to see 50 or 60 key homes around the downtown. Get a private investor to come in and flip them, bring them back to all their glory instead of these 6-unit apartment complexes we have, and we'd be well on our way to Frankfort moving forward.
All right, Lewis?
Well, the answer is small businesses, small businesses, small businesses. We've seen an alarming number of small businesses that can't seem to make Frankfort work for them and their family, which is very concerning to me. And one of the ways that you combat that is you go after them as hard as you do the big businesses. You say, what are we missing? What do we have to do to help you? Because they all have unique problems that make it hard for them. The assessed value of Frankfort goes down. And here's the thing, if you think back, first mayor I ever helped was Roy Scott. I helped hammer in his little wooden stakes into the ground. Roy Scott annexed the factories, and it was in one of those 12-year phase-in programs. In 2012, the factories came in, we saw our assessed value be doubled, almost tripled, because the factories coming in. But since 2012, we've not had a single year where our assessed value's gone up. It's gone down 2.8%. And a lot of that has to do with our small businesses closing. They're the heartbeat. They've been keeping the lights on in this town all these years. We've got to do a better job helping them.
All right, Eric?
This question from the audience is directed to Mr. Wheeler. You have spoken a lot about cutting costs and spending. Please tell what your plans are for growth and increased revenue. And they follow this up for both candidates. They would like you to define leadership.
Okay, that's a lot to do in a minute. Cutting costs on spending, we got to redo the bidding process. We're going to start going hard after our local guys that are doing the contracts for stuff. That when I only see one bid come in, it really concerns me. You get them to compete, you get prices for construction costs to come down. I nearly fell out of my chair when I found that wall we built by Prairie Creek Park cost $456,000 to build. The bidding process, getting those guys to be competitive, there's no way in the world that should cost anything close to that amount of money. So that's a big one. Then a lot of the projects that we're doing, some of them, they're going to have to go through what will be a different way of vetting them from me and my team. And you're going to have to be able to prove this is going to, in the long run, actually bring back business and people and revenue into our community.
Chris?
Well, it's not rocket science, and I think we're going to continue to do what we've been doing. For Frankfort to land the 6th largest micropolitan investment in the United States of America last year, the $35 million investment from Donaldson & Company, close to $70 million with ConAgra, NHK is busting at the seams. We're having tremendous growth, not only from new industries coming in, but our existing industry is expanding. And so what we've heard, and I talk to our small business owners, And I can tell you, Casey at Whiskey Rose is awfully happy that she's got 70 families living right across the street that can pop over and buy a blouse anytime they want. Or they can go to Johnny V's, or they can go to Greek's Pizzeria, or they can go to Arnie's and pop in there and get a drink or some food for their family. So we're going to keep investing in these amenities, not only for the larger businesses, but the smaller businesses. And what is leadership to me? Leadership to me is someone who is able to make others feel as though they can become a leader too, and get the most out of every single person around him or her. I tell our team all the time, each person is just as important as me. I don't care whether you're a captain of a shift, or a patrol officer, or a street superintendent. That's what leadership is.
This question is from the audience and is strictly for Lewis. Can you explain your thought process and reasons for choosing to vote for a candidate from another city when there was one that would have been an opportunity to place an individual from our city in the State House when I voted to replace Frank Hartman?
Oh, absolutely. I love this story. I went through a process. We're trying to replace Brent Hirschman as a senator. I serve on as a precinct committeeman, so I have a vote to decide who would replace him. And we had heard rumors that the mayor might run for the seat. We heard rumors that Alan Dunn might run for the seat. So I talked with these guys, but I held off. I said, if there's a Clinton County guy that's going to run, I'd like to support him. I didn't hear anything. I finally heard for sure the mayor wasn't, Alan Dunn wasn't going to run. So I met with Brian Buchanan from Lebanon for a second time, talked to him and said, hey, I like you the best of the ones I've met. I'll support you. I'll help you. I'll introduce you to people. I'll give you my support. About 6 hours later, Ed Crichton called me and said, hey, I want to talk to you about supporting me. Ed was a little too late to the table. I told him, I already gave my word. I'm going to help this guy, but if he fails on the first ballot, then I will help you. And I kept true to my word. I kept true to my word with a lot of people, and I could mention names in here saying a lot of mean things to me about you'll never win another election if you don't go back on your word and support somebody else. But that's the way I am. I keep true to my word.
Chris, you are response?
Just one item back to transparency. I believe we're the first administration that we record all of our meetings from an audio standpoint, and then they're uploaded on the website. So we don't have visual yet, but you can get on our city website and listen to meetings. And I'm not sure if previous administrations have done this. You very well might have, I don't know, but we did reinstitute a public speaking portion of every meeting. So if you want to come and address your city council, your board of works, your mayor, whoever it may be, it's your meeting too. And I think those two things add to the level of transparency. They're your meetings. Your voice should be heard at those meetings, and that is something we brought back to the table for transparency's sake.
All right, back to Eric.
Another one from the audience. The city owns the Main Street Hotel. Why would the city evict the residents, and what's the city's plan for the building?
Chris?
Well, number one, the city did not evict anyone from the main hotel. The Frankfort Redevelopment Commission purchased the main hotel from the Clinton County Economic Advancement Foundation. So what that board did, I'm not going to speak for that not-for-profit board, but when the city of Frankfort purchased the building, we did not certainly evict anyone from that. What I've learned with development is you have to get key pieces of property in friendly hands. We've got the bankable building, a wonderful job that the Reicherts are doing down there at the old National Cigar Factory. Catty corner from that, Bob's Marathon. They were just at our city council meeting, this past city council meeting. We're going to have a brand new convenience store down there again. That hasn't been that way since I was a kid. So that entire area is going to start coming back to life. And I'm looking, hopefully if you all give me the opportunity the next 5 years, is then to work my way down the street to North Main Street with the help of Councilman Joe Palmer, our Redevelopment Commission, and our City Council. I think that's the last frontier of the downtown. Once we get that taken care of in about 12 years, we will have a downtown that will have renaissanced. I believe that.
So I really can't speak to the main hotel story because I wasn't part of that. But this brings forward a point that I'd like to make about what I find concerning about a redevelopment commission who oversees our TIF funds. These people are not elected by you. Probably 70% of you here don't have a clue the names of the people that sit on that board, don't know when they meet, and they have the ability to put us into all kinds of debt through mortgaging and leveraging, whatever you want to say, the TIF funds to do these projects, and you never know anything about them. I didn't know anything about Main Hotel because it all happened without city council consent or without even an email, hey, we're looking at doing this and just want to keep you in the loop. It just happened, and that's what's concerning to me. I'd love to see us live stream these meetings. I've fought for this for 3 years now. We've got the technology fund to do it from a city council standpoint, and like when your property taxes get voted to be raised like they were September 24, 2018, ordinance 1809, you can simply, people that weren't there, they can click on the Facebook feed and they can watch it and see for sure. Yeah, Lewis was telling the truth about that.
Okay, thank you.
This question is for both of you. What are Frankfort's biggest challenges in the coming years?
Lewis?
So one of the biggest challenges that we have in the coming years is resetting the mindset. You know, I know we're divided, and it's unfortunate because I'm not pushing division from anybody. We've just got a philosophical difference in how we go forward. Prairie Creek Park, a lot of people are upset about it. I'm upset about Prairie Creek Park. I predicted that it was going to be higher than what it is because of background in construction sciences and knowing these kind of things. And they shot me down. It wound up being higher again, then it wound up eventually doubling. We had 6 years ago a cash cow was presented to us in our golf course. And we've dumped over $1 million in this golf course, and they came back to our city council and said, we're nowhere close to making it break even. We need you to double how much you pay us on our contract to make it go even. I'm concerned about these things. We're going to have to do a better job vetting these projects, do a better job cutting back our spending, because then it frees us up to invest in other things like your streets and things like that.
Chris?
So Councilman, if you look back in the packet that you have, the ordinance that we voted through for IU Health, one of those ordinances, you will have found in there that you did vote for the Main Street Hotel acquisition. So that was in one of those ordinances, so I encourage you to go back and read through that. Everything the Redevelopment Commission does has to eventually come to the City Council. We set it up like that because TIF and RDCs, they can get out of control, and we did not want that to happen in Frankfort. You know, a pet peeve of mine is watching our young kids graduate and never come back. A pet peeve of mine is that when a retired couple have their kids go through the school corporation, nothing keeps them in Frankfort anymore, so they decide to go to Arizona and Florida. Now, nothing against those of y'all that go to Arizona or Florida in the wintertime, but I want that to stop. I want Frankfort to be a booming, safe community that's vibrant, that's dynamic, that's aesthetically pleasing, that has restaurants and amenities like a movie theater or a new car dealership. And folks, that's just not going to happen. We can't just hope and pray one night and have this stuff fall from the sky. It's going to happen because we make strategic public investments in places like Prairie Creek Park, our golf course, and Nickel Plate Flats.
All right, Erick?
This audience question is for Mayor McBarnes. You say that the citizens haven't had their taxes raised yet the property tax rate went from 2.043 to 2.1124. Can you explain how this isn't raising taxes?
Absolutely. So what I've said consistently is that we have levied no new property taxes in addition to what we have currently. Because other communities, if you look at what Lebanon's did, for example, with their pool project, they levied additional taxes. But yes, our current tax rate has had an upward pressure put onto that. That is derived from our city general spending, okay? Over 63% of our city general fund goes to funding our police and our fire department. When I came into office, a police officer in the city of Frankfort was making $39,000, and so were our firefighters. And they could go out any day, they put their lives on the line, and they could be killed, okay? So one big push of the administration has been to get our first responders, the heroes of this community, to at least get their pay somewhat competitive in comparison to surrounding communities. We've raised their pay by close to 38% for both police and fire over the past 4 years. So yes, it's put a little uptick in pressure on property tax rates, but I believe the investments will pay off. Our assessed value will continue to grow, like what we've had with PepsiCo and Frito-Lay, and tax rates are coming down. And if I get voted out of office for that, that's okay with me. You can underline it twice.
Lewis?
Well, what you have to do is make sure you don't spend more than what you take in. Like this year's budget, we're taking in taxes $15.8 million, but we're spending $16,088,000. We're overspending our budget by $288,000, over $250,000 more than what we actually have, which means you dip back into your general fund monies or rainy day or however you want to find that money to do it. Speaking to the vote on Main Street, I've got a reputation for not always voting for things. And so I'd like to look back and see for sure whether or not I actually voted for that or not, but it doesn't strike me as something that I voted for. But anyhow, I think there's a lot of areas where we can see development in Frankfort, and I think some things don't really cost a lot of money. Community pride doesn't cost a lot of money. It is something that you can build. You can get business owners to continue or go back to supporting sports teams again, where they decorate their windows downtown and things like that to build up community pride.
This question is from the audience and it's for Lewis Wheeler. Why do you work in Lebanon with all the opportunities available here in your hometown?
The answer is simple, because I want to provide for 4 little kids. I live in Frankfort because I love this town, and let's be real, it's a roots community. Most of the people here are here because their family's from here. You don't hear a lot of people saying, oh, we're going to move to Frankfort because it's an oil town. Once upon a time it was a railroad town. There was good jobs in Frankfort, and some good jobs hopefully will be coming back again, but there's nowhere that can touch what I make, where I make here in this town. I can't make $15 an hour in HK. I can't make $16, $17 an hour at NTK and provide for 4 kids. I don't want to work 2 jobs. I want to be able, but I want to invest here. So here's something that I do. I buy all my gas in Frankfort because a portion of your gas tax goes back to your roads in Frankfort. And that's the reason why that I continue to buy here. But I'm more than happy to commute if it means that I'm able to provide the right kind of lifestyle for my kids. And I'd like to see us do more, get more businesses here that can afford to pay $25 and $30 an hour.
In terms of spending, I'll keep saying it. When I came into office, I had $1.6 million in city general. Started this year, we had $3.1 million in city general. We will continue to balance our budgets. We do have balanced budgets. We are partially self-insured on the healthcare side, so a lot of our financial health on an annual basis is dictated upon the health of our overall group, how many claims we have. But starting this July 1st, it's very progressive for a community of our size, and I'm very pleased about it. All of our employees are going to have an employee healthcare clinic that they can go to, free of charge for them to get their annual visits, their primary care provisions, everything they need. And I'm hoping that if we allow this outlet for our employees to go free of charge, that will make our overall health of our group better, which will ultimately drive down our costs. I think this is the way we must think in 21st century healthcare and medicine. And in terms of taxes, a residential home paid 2014 in comparison to pay 2019, so an $11 annual tax bill increase. That's 91 cents a month. But again, we focused on public safety, we have upped the ante on public safety, and I stand behind that.
All right, Erick.
This is a question from the audience for both candidates. How do you plan to address the massive brain drain of talented and intelligent individuals who graduate from our schools? How do we attract and retain the next generation that could make Frankfort vibrant, or in extreme cases, keep it from dying?
Chris?
Well, to build that pride, one thing I do on a weekly basis, I meet with a young group of high school students called the Frankfort Future Leaders Advisory Council. We not only meet here in Frankfort, but we go down to places like Indiana University, Bloomington. We attend statewide Mayor's Youth Council conferences, and that's been so rewarding to me. Our gateway signs coming into the city, our city gym, downtown sculpture, the hot dog bun bench that was unveiled at the Hot Dog Festival a couple years ago. That was all done by the FFLAC kiddos. Isaac Chavez is one of those, and now he's running for city council at large. And I think that it warrants mentioning because much like a basketball team or a football team, you need a feeder program into local government. We need to have a succession plan. You know, Lewis and I, we're not going to be mayors forever. That's not going to be the case. So we need people who can step up and have the basic tools and the leadership skills. So that's one thing that I've done and that I will continue to do. And then bringing Ivy Tech Community College here to our community, that's one of the first things I've done as mayor. And education can solve a lot in society. Giving our young single moms and dads an affordable, quality education, they'll be able to then turn around and make a higher salary every year and provide for their family here. That's awesome.
I've been a part of a lot of these kind of youth groups, learning to lead and things like that, where you try to encourage and you try to mentor and help people come back. I look at a town like Crawfordsville, whose debt rate, even their TIF debt rate or utility debt rate, is extremely low, and it's extremely affordable for people to live there. Sat down with Mayor Todd Barton, where he talked about how they were able to take their fiber optics and they were able to lease out their fiber optics and at the same time make the residents of Crawfordsville a gig city town. They're resources that we're going to have to work on, and we have them. Honestly, we really do. But we're going to have to do some development into some of these resources, because I think those are things that bring people back. We got to do more than just say marry someone from Frankfort, so you stay in Frankfort. Now, I didn't marry somebody from Frankfort, but my family's from here, and I noticed that there's a lot of families here that their kids don't live here. Their kids live in other places, and so we'll need more than just roots, even though that's how we're made up at the moment.
This question is for both of you. Two of our biggest problems here is housing and workforce, and how do you guys plan to fix both of those problems?
Well, first of all, let me talk a little bit about workforce. Governor Holcomb has said this on many occasions, and I think you guys know this. The biggest generation in American history was the baby boom generation. They are retiring faster than our generation is taking their place in the work world. So every city is experiencing shortages of people to step forward and to work. This isn't just because we don't have a good labor force in Frankfort. We've got a very low unemployment rate. Our people are working. Our people are paying their bills. So honestly, we've got plenty of jobs here. I'd like to see more jobs come in, but we're not able to staff everything that we have at the moment. And so our housing, we're going to have to get code enforcement to enforce some of the codes that we have. To have a consistency, I voted for the proposal to move it to the police department to try to get more people out there patrolling and seeing what's going on, and hopefully help enforce what we've already got on the books.
Could you repeat the question once more, please?
Two of our biggest problems here are dealing with housing and workforce. So how do you plan to fix those?
I completely agree. You know, I'm married to an HR person in the industrial park, so I hear about it on a daily basis, how large our workforce crisis is right now. We have a workforce crisis, and it's no different here than in other rural communities. And yes, 8 years ago when I became mayor, our unemployment rate hovered around 8.3%. And then, as you just heard the councilman mention, now we're just a little above 3%. So we need to attract people here. Economic development in the 21st century is you attract the people and the jobs will follow. It used to be you attract the jobs and the people would follow. It's the exact opposite now. So it's why it's important we invest in things like Prairie Creek Park, our outlying parks. We double down on what we're putting into our roads, which we are. And then on the workforce education side, we have Ivy Tech. So if Fontana Fasteners needs a specific set of training to train new employees on this new press they have coming in, we can call up Andrew Muffett and Chancellor Baith and say, hey guys, we need a curriculum to get this skill gap taken care of so that you can have employees that are going to be able to make your widget and make it well. So we put things in place, and we'll continue to do that to make Frankfort vibrant.
This is another question for Mayor Barnes from the audience. In regards to transparency, could you explain why the audio recordings can take 3 months or so to be uploaded to the city website?
Sure, absolutely. So in order to rein in costs, we purchased an internet plan that only allowed us a certain amount of megabytes per month. So it took us a while to get audio up on the website. We have corrected that now. We have purchased more megabytes, so I'm now told that won't be an issue at all. We'll be able to upload those right away, and you will have the audio on there to enjoy. So late at night when you can't sleep, make sure to turn it on.
Yeah, I don't know why, it takes a while. Sometimes I like to listen to it, and I think there's a policy where you can get a hold of the clerk treasurer's office and possibly listen to the people, or the, whatever you call it, the recording later on. Prairie Creek Park, a lot of controversy over Prairie Creek Park. I wasn't for it. I voted against it every single time. Continue to have concerns because this isn't the kind of thing that brings in the majority of people into a community. This is something that hopefully it can pay for itself in the long run, but we have a history of putting together amenities that do not pay for themselves. And we're trying to put together a pool right now. They'll take 30 years to pay off, but it's only going to last 20 years. I've got concerns with this style of developing amenities for Frankfort. So we need to see some sustainable type things come to Frankfort.
I
This question is for both of you. We have heard this term used an awful lot, so I want to get your guys' definition of what exactly is wasteful spending in your mind.
Louis?
Sure. Well, wasteful spending, exactly what I said, is when you do projects that don't pay itself out. Often you continue to have to pay in taxpayer dollars to get them up to where they're supposed to be. Honestly, and I'm kind of just speaking from my heart as a dad, I don't want to see I don't want to continue to pay money that I could be taking my kids to go do cool things, go into tax dollars and go into all these other ways to fund these projects that aren't paying for themselves. When you look at the pool, and when developers know that we don't have a pool in Frankfort, you would think that if it was going to be a real cash cow, there'd be a line of people knocking the mayor's door down saying, we want to build that aquatic center there. I'll go on record to say I think we need a pool, but we don't need an aquatic center. We don't need to blow it up into something that's going to cost us too much to maintain. And we're not even talking about maintenance costs. Right now, we're just talking about building. We'll get to maintenance costs later, and we'll figure out what that turns out to be later on. That's not a smart way to invest money.
Chris?
Well, I'm all for having great health insurance, and we've been able to maintain great health insurance for our employees. It means a lot to me because I've been a patient a lot. I know how it hits you in the pocketbook. But when I came into office, we had the second richest health plan in Anthem's entire portfolio of business. Let that sink in for a second. The second richest healthcare plan in Anthem's entire portfolio of business. That was like the Titanic going for the iceberg, folks. We were heading for it. So we changed that all around. We still give our employees great health care benefits and great health care insurance. But I mean, we were coming up. We didn't know if Obama was going to be inserting the Cadillac tax. We didn't know what was going to be coming along with that on the national level. To me, that was wasteful spending. And it wasn't fair to the employees because it wasn't sustainable. So we had to fix that, and we did. And in terms of places like Prairie Creek Park already kind of paying off, I think they already are. I mean, Nickel Plate Flats is 97% occupied, not but 8 or 9 months out of being announced. Frankie's Coffee Shop is now downtown. You know, Casey's Boutique is now downtown, Whiskey Rose, Delilah. So we're already seeing these investments come back tenfold.
Thank you, Erick.
This question from the audience is for both of you. What are we going to do about the drug crisis that continues to grow?
Hold that.
What are we going to do about the drug crisis that continues to grow?
Okay, Chris?
So 2 things that we've done specifically, all 3 things actually. We put 6 more police officers on the street since I've taken office. We put 2 canine officers on the street, which are drug detecting dogs. So we're getting a lot more meth, heroin off the street, marijuana, synthetic marijuana than we were before, pills. I also stepped up after the Noblesville incident last year. That hit really close to home. I went to our chief and I said, Chief, we've got to put school resource officers in every school in the city of Frankfort. I can't be mayor of this city one more day and not have that first line of defense. We have them at some schools. We did not have them in our elementary schools. And I think that correlates and it ties into the battle for drugs. If we can put a positive role model and a mentor in that young person's life, you know, and Officer Justin, you know, and they form that positive bond and they know these people are there to help them. Maybe it helps them later on down the road. We have more officers on the street now, and then going to the 12-hour shift, it's good for our police officers. It gives them more time off, but it also gives us more manpower, more officers on a given road at a single period of time. What is this all correlated into? Frankfort being the 8th safest city in Indiana.
So I supported these measures to put the SRC, we agree. Supported these measures to put an SRO officer in the schools. Now, I don't agree with the 12-hour days for the cops. I think everybody who's ever worked a 12-hour day knows about 8 hours in, you hit a wall and productivity just goes down drastically. So I do think that we need to switch, or at least look at switching back to multiple shifts instead of doing 12-hour days. There are a lot of agencies that we have to help try to tackle the drug. And you've got to remember, it's not just police. You've got your EMS, you've got your hospitals, you've got your churches, you've got the special groups, like we've heard of the 180 group that's going to try to do drug rehabilitation and get men back on their feet and things like that. And we've just got to partner up with them. We've got to partner up with our local sheriff's office. And we've got to say, hey, we're on one team. This isn't FPD versus Sheriff's Department. We're all for the people of Frankfort and Clinton County.
All right, Ken?
This question is for both of you. Are you happy with the direction that Frankfort's going? And if you're not, why?
Louis?
Well, if I wasn't completely happy, I'd move. Maybe I'd move to Lebanon and be closer to where I work. There are concerns that I have. I've pointed out the concerns. I'm concerned with the direction we're going spending-wise. Anybody that's ever retired knows the goal is to get out of debt as fast as you can. There's always a certain level of debt that you maintain to improve things, vehicles and stuff like that. But it doesn't mean that we've got to be taxing everyone at the max tax levy like we are right now. It doesn't mean that we have to, like we did last year, vote to increase the max tax levy so we can continue to tax at the max tax levy. It means that we've got to find ways to cut back on spending. We've got to start. Some of these projects that we're doing, like I said, they're not paying themselves off, so we've got to do a good job of cutting. I sound like a broken record. We've got to do a good job of figuring out which of these projects aren't going to see the kind of pay that we need. You see sports guys, they pay big money for like LeBron James or something, but they've got to prove their worth to get that money.
Chris?
In terms of seeing initial return on investment, I'm very happy. Again, Frito-Lay, $160 million, Donaldson, $35 million. It's been a wonderful return, and I appreciate that return very much. It tells us, I believe, that we're on the right track. One thing that I want to see us get a little better at is housing. That's one of the biggest things that I want to tackle. I want to continue to tackle that, bringing new housing to our community in the form of a new subdivision, homes in the 125 to 175 range, and then also rehabilitation of our existing housing stock to make sure they are up to code enforcement and property maintenance standards. It's why we've shifted things over to the police department, made ourselves more efficient, brought in Kevin Evans as our new director of housing initiatives and property maintenance. He's doing a great job focusing on housing initiatives. I think if we can get that right over the next 4 years, continue our downtown revitalization, continue driving our assessed value up through these monumental investments and job creation projects in the industrial park, we're going to see a Frankfort that none of us thought was ever possible again. We've got a lot of challenges, a lot of hurdles, but I think we can get there, folks.
Erick?
This question is directed to Lewis. If you were elected mayor, how are you going to lower utility rates and still maintain them?
Well, the utility rates aren't going to be lowered, but do they have to continue to be raised every single year or every other year? No, they don't. There's some things that we're going to have to look into when it comes to, and I'm not going to give you a blow by blow. I've got a minute. I'm happy to go to coffee with some of you guys and talk to you about ideas that I have. So I keep being a little bit on the vague side, saying there's things that we can do. We have ways to cut some of these costs, and there's all kinds of ideas that I would love to have a chance to implement with utility rates, but our water is looking at going up this year. One of the things that I proposed when the wastewater was going on, which that all happened behind closed doors, and then they submitted it to us to vote on it a couple hours before the vote. One of the things I said was, we've honestly got to talk to the guys working wastewater and find out what are the areas that need to be improved that would increase capacity. But we went ahead and did Prairie Creek Park before we increased capacity. Our priorities were out of order with that one.
Chris, you can respond.
Yeah, I refute this idea that our wastewater treatment plant expansion was done behind closed doors. I started talking about this in my State of the City addresses 5 years ago now. It was headlines in the newspaper. One of the first meetings we had a huge public meeting in this room specifically about wastewater. I know a lot of your faces, and you were here talking to the surrounding towns, seeing, hey, do we need to link up with you guys? Are we thinking too small at first? So this was vetted, not behind closed doors, but out in the public, out in the open. And then just back to where our rates are now. We don't change our rates once or twice every 3 or 4 years. On the electric side, we had not had a rate adjustment in 20 years. 20 years. And even after the rate adjustment, if you buy 500 kilowatt hours of power from us, you're paying on average $5 less here in Frankfort than you are the average of other IMPA members. IMPA is where we buy our power from. 4,000 gallons a month of sewer and water costs you $58.31 here. In Lebanon, it costs $95. Noblesville, $80. Hobart, $80. Kokomo, $77. Jasper, $68. We're competitive.
Yeah.
This question is for both of you. We've done a lot of work revitalizing the downtown. Which other sections of town should be revitalized, and how you going to go about doing that?
Chris?
Sure. So I look at the northwest and southwest side of our city, and I think I'd love to see more investment go in that area of our community. We tried to put as much road paving in that side of the community as we can. We also just accomplished a Safer Routes to School project, over 35,000 square feet of new sidewalks to get our kiddos to Suncrest Elementary School in Blue Ridge and Green Meadows. All these things are done to help offset the cost of the taxpayers through grants like Safer Routes to School. But I'd love to see that northwest and southwest side. And again, I think, the more that we get our downtown in order to have a strong body, you got to have a strong heart. So we get our heart strong, I think we're going to see these positive results spill out into our neighborhoods. I had one realtor reach out to me. The average of a home sold in 2017 in Frankfort was $65,000. In 2018, that number had risen to $80,000. So home values are even increasing in our community, which I think is another bearing, another metric that tells me, hey, we're somewhat on the right direction here. Let's keep that going.
I hope we see all of the areas of town addressed, and hopefully whether Michael or Corey wins this election, 3rd District gets a lot of love, because the 3rd Street Park and the streets around where I live, they need a lot of help. The sidewalks need to be replaced, and I don't think our 50-50 program is cutting the mustard when it comes to helping replace sidewalks around town. We'll get back to address this. The reason why I said that this happened behind closed doors is because it happened in executive sessions. It happened where one USB member and 2 city council members met, and they signed a non-disclosure agreement not to talk about the details of the wastewater plant until they finally decided to present them, which they did 3 hours before the first reading at city council meeting. I specifically asked both city council members, what are we looking at? What kind of things are happening? The one said, you're not going to like it, but I signed non-disclosure and I can't say anything about it. And so that's the reason why I said that. So the reason why I refute the refutal of it happening behind closed doors.
Erick?
What do you believe are the most effective ways in which to help the average Frankfort resident?
Willis? I'm sorry.
What do you believe are the most effective ways in which to help the average Frankfort resident?
Yeah, so it starts with listening. One of the projects I was happy to partner with the mayor on was bringing the SHARP program, the AMP program in to help older residents and disabled people get the help they need to fix their properties. And a lien goes onto their property where they got to live there 5 years so that they can't flip it. Helping the average Frankfort residents, we're looking at an incredible, I should pause and just say I'm so thankful for our police department. I know a lot of you are here tonight. I'm thankful for our street department and things like that. I like to see us get our street department pay up comparable to other cities as well. Maybe that's not popular with the other departments, but I know that's one of the, we keep saying, well, we're investing so much money into the police department, and I'm happy with that, I really am. But let's invest a lot of money in getting the salaries up, and some of these guys full-time in the street department as well.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is a job, a good income stream. And no, it's not government's responsibility to create that job. The private sector does that, but we can invest strategically and we can create a fertile environment where private investors want to create those jobs and keep those jobs here in Frankfort. Folks, make no bones about it. I mean, a lot of rural communities like ours are dying on the vine. They're dying on the vine. And so I think we have to continue to think progressively. We have to invest in our roads, invest in our streets, invest in our transportation infrastructure, amenities. I think it all works together so that we can put our best foot forward. So when a PepsiCo, a Frito-Lay, a Donaldson, an ADM is looking for that next great place to plant a huge investment, they say, hey, Frankfort's a city on the move. They're embracing this idea of how you develop and attract and attain and retain and teach up a solid workforce. I think if we continue to do those things, that's going to impact your everyday citizen. A good job, that you have upward mobility in that job and that you don't have to worry about getting laid off every 6 months because the local economy is shaky. I want to see us get there, and I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
This question is from the audience, and it's for Chris. When you say Nickel Plate Flats is more than 90% occupied, is that actual leases, or does that include the rentals on Airbnbs?
No, those are the actual leases, so those do not include the Airbnbs. But the Airbnbs are very popular, I've heard.
I can talk. I was a minister. I can fill time. I think the key here is smart investments. You're gonna hear that word smart till it drives you out of your mind, because it's gotta be smart projects, smart investments, smart use of resources. The reason for that, utility rates are up, taxes are up, service fees are up. In many cases, services have gone down. Remember, when you paid $7, and I just talked about streets department, I won't talk about you again. We paid $7 a month for trash pickup, you got it twice a week. Now you pay $12 a month and you get it once a week. And these guys are not really seeing that big of an increase in what they're being paid. And I know that they have a hard time dealing. I don't know how many of you are willing to stand on the back of a trash truck in negative 40-degree weather, like my friend said. But I'm thankful that you do. And we've got to find ways to smartly invest the money, because let's be honest, some people need to pick up twice a week with big families.
Erick?
This is a question for both of you. How do you both plan to help small businesses that are not in the downtown area?
Lewis?
So it starts, like I said, with listening. I went on what I call a listening tour. Many of the small business owners, as some of you are here, invited me in, and we sat and we talked about what kind of things do you need. One of the things from the downtown business owners, and I know it's a point of contention, is they say we don't have enough parking downtown. What they like to do is see the time frame go from 3-hour parking downtown back to 2-hour parking. Because if you're going to buy antiques and you're going to buy an antique dresser, you want to park close enough you don't have to walk 2 blocks to put it in your car or in your truck. So, I mean, it is a deal. You want to take your kids and you want to walk to things. I know that our whole downtown would fit inside Tippecanoe Mall, but one thing that Tippecanoe Mall has that Frankfort downtown doesn't is you don't have to walk across the streets with your kids every time that you want to go out and do all this. There's no traffic, cross traffic, different places. And so I take it seriously, try to open it up so more people can visit the businesses, and the people that work down there can park off the square.
Chris?
So listen to them. I mean, as mayor, the thing I love about my job is not one day is not similar to the next day. I could be dealing with a feral cat issue on Meredith Street one day and a speeding issue over on the west side of the city or east side of the city another day. So a lot of times, small business owners, just letting them know, hey, we're here for you. We want to listen to you. We want to try to be proactive to your concerns and not reactive. And that's the kind of mayor I believe I've been, and the kind of mayor I want to continue to be. And I will say one thing on the trash pickup. Think about it. I still believe we do get 2 days of pickup, because one of those days is recycling on Wednesday. And if you can't, I mean, I'm telling you folks, 95% of what we put in our trash can we can recycle. I don't know about you, but I want to see Mountain Clinton get smaller, not bigger. And so we need to think about recycling in the future. $12 a month, we did have to bump that up a little bit. I was talking to one of my friends who lived out in the county here a couple weeks ago. She pays north of $70 a month just for trash pickup. She couldn't believe the $12 number. And our street department guys, they do a fantastic job. I'm all for you. You guys are amazing. You are.
This question is from the audience and is for both of you. I would like to hear about the plan for deficit spending versus bringing Frankfort back into the positive.
Chris?
Well, the questionnaire, he's absolutely right, or she. There is a difference between debt and deficit spending. We are not deficit spending. Again, when I came into office, $1.6 million in city general. That's a certified number. First of this year, $3.1 million in city general. You don't get from there to there by deficit spending. You get there by balancing the budget, living within your means. Yes, we have issued some debt. Now, when you start talking about debt on the federal level, our federal government has to borrow money to pay off the interest on our federal debt. We are nowhere near there. It's blown out of capacity. But we have responsible, diligent revenue streams for all this debt that we've issued. We're still balancing our budgets, and we've increased our city's rainy day or savings account by 25% since I've taken office. So we're going to continue to do the same thing and remain fiscally strong.
One of the reasons why the TIF district was created was because we weren't bringing in the revenues that we needed to do what we wanted to do. And that's the same reason why when we spend more than what we bring in, and to me, a balanced budget isn't you end with $0 at the end of the month. Nobody wants to live paycheck to paycheck. You want to actually have some money left over, so if there is a problem, you're able to go there. You don't want to be bonded out like we are right now, where if we have a project, we do all these creative financing to be able to do the projects we want, where we create, like with Prairie Creek Park. We couldn't get the bond. The only way we could get the bond was One, we had to form a government nonprofit, deed the property to them, lease it from them, then we were able to borrow against the property. And then even then, our bond people, they said, we want to make sure we get our money back. You can't pay this bond off early, so you'll pay every cent of the interest that builds up over the next 20 years.
All right, Erick.
This question from the audience is directed to Mayor McBarnes. If the budget is always balanced at the beginning of the year, what is the positive balance in February or March after the first few council meetings?
After the first few council meetings,
As it's written, it says after the first few council meetings.
well, we'll have gotten through 2 or 3 different pay cycles, you know, so if you end the year at 3.1, so I'd say, I don't know, 2.7, 2.8 million maybe, somewhere in that neck of the woods, depending on how much health insurance claims that we have. And then you make it until May, you make it until the next tax roll in May. And the councilman's right, the last couple of years, we've had to transfer funds from edit, which is, it's also our monies, over to cover city general. This year, the council hasn't been requested to do that because we are in stronger financial position. We've grown our cash reserves, we've spent responsibly, and we have not had to do that, nor will we have to do that this year as we've done years past. Another shadow of things are going right financially. They're not going backwards, they're going in the right direction.
And hopefully we don't have to do that because everybody's paying more taxes, so more money's coming in. Hopefully we don't have to transfer money to do that. If you were to look at the city fund balance right now, and what would be beautiful is if it was uploaded to the city website or a Facebook page where anybody could look at it. You could pull your smartphone out and you could say, is Lewis telling the truth? And you could click it. You know, at the last city council meeting, the fund balance was submitted. We were barely inside $1 million. We started with $3 million in general fund, but now we're down to about $1 million. When I first read the statement my friend put out, I was worried. I thought, well, he was talking about there's always $3 million backup reserve. Well, there's not. We started with $3 million, and we'll just barely make it to the tax draw. Many times we've got to actually borrow money to make it to the tax draw. And then once again, like I said, it's just paycheck to paycheck, hoping that we've got more Peters to rob than Pauls to pay.
This question is from the audience, and it's for Lewis. Your platform is centered around the current administration's excessive spending. What is your plan to grow the city, given what you don't want to spend any money?
My platform is actually centered around faith, family, and Frankfort. It's not centered around, that's just an issue that I continue to bring up, partly because I've been called a liar about it on WBAA radio and other places. And then lo and behold, when the numbers come out, when I say, you know, well, the taxes are up, and then everybody gets their tax bills, they see he wasn't lying. He had told the truth all along. So that's my platform isn't about the spending, but it is something you hear me hit a whole lot. It's because I was raised in a family where they said, if you want something, you work hard, you tighten your belt, you see what you can cut out, what you don't need, absolutely need. Maybe you got to quit going out to eat 3 times a week so that you can then put that money back towards what you want. It's exactly the same thing if you want to grow what we have. We're going to have a host of we run the biggest personnel of any time ever, and we're 1,000 people, residents less than we've ever been before. So, you know, our city employee base went from 72 to 148 employees running this town. I love you guys, and I'm not looking to cut your jobs, but we are looking to see ways we can save.
So if you look at a city salary ordinance, the year before I took office, in the salary ordinance now, there's a net change of 5 employees. There's 5 more employees now, and that's utilities and city, than there were 8 years ago. We've added 6 new police officers, and we've added 5 new firemen since I've taken office. So keep those statistics and facts in mind. One thing I want to talk about with Prairie Creek Park, this project wasn't a pet project of any one individual. We had a downtown revitalization plan, which we went out, we got a public grant for. Our downtown building owners, business owners, high school students, local volunteers, moms and dads, they all came in a room and we said, what do we want our downtown to be? And that was one of the projects born out of the downtown revitalization plan. Yes, no one likes borrowing money for a project, but again, if we want our city to go to the next level, if we're tired of average, if we're tired of normal, if we're tired of barely getting by and not getting any sniffs from any East Side Nines or Goodrich movie theaters or Buffalo Wild Wings, gosh darn it, we got to do something different. Because the definition of insanity is continuing to do the same thing and expecting different results. And oh, by the way, we had $800,000 donated for Prairie Creek Park. Not an insignificant number. That's a big number for where I'm from.
This is a question for the audience, for both of you. With respect to building a new police station, is the old Kiger School property still in play, or has it been removed? If so, why has the property been removed, given the average appraisal value of $94,000?
Chris?
So simply, the feedback that we heard from citizens, they did not want to see the new police station being at Kiger. It was going to be off the main drag. It was going to be further off or downtown. They wanted it to have great visibility off 28, and they wanted it to be closer to the downtown. Also, with the old Kiger site as well, keep in mind you had an old school there, and I don't know what's in the ground, but I'm guessing there's probably going to have to be a lot of site and excavation work. You might get into some environmental issues. I don't know. Okay, I don't know, but I think that's going to be one challenge that development of that site's going to have in the future. So we did pull that off. We're retooling. We're looking at more areas right along State Road 28, perhaps taking 4 or 5 homes that are abandoned and vacant and run down and maybe knocking them down and building up a new police station. So we don't want to jump into this process. We want it to be a process that's going to do us good for the next 20, 30, 40 years. So we're trying to be very prudent, very diligent, and spend the money where it needs to be spent so that we have a great FPD for generations to come.
So the mayor's statement's consistent with what Troy told me, that they had a lot of people reach out, I guess, and say that they didn't want it there. They weren't my neighbors or friends. I represent their district. We were hoping they would come there because, you know, the majority of your drug bust and drug activity is happening either in the northwest side of town or the southwest side of town. So we were really hoping that we would get the police station there and it would revitalize our neighborhood. So our place would be safer, you know. I can't tell you how many times, but I can tell you, I believe it was Tuesday night last week, just 1 block over from my house, there was 4 police cars with their lights going, and it's a regular occurrence. So you look out the window and hey, they're nailing somebody. We'd like to see our community build up. I think it's a good solution. I'd vote for putting it there if it ever come to a vote.
This question is for both of you. What do each of you think your best assets are to be mayor of the community?
Well, I have a lot of assets. One of them is that I'd be the first bilingual mayor of Frankfort, speak Spanish as well as English. I even when I went to the Learning to Lead to speak to the young people, they were all Hispanic, and Claudia said, would you talk to them in Spanish? And so I did part of my presentation in Spanish. Another asset that I have, honestly, is just having been a blue-collar working individual. I understand the struggles. I didn't go to college directly into administration, but I went out and I put in the elbow grease, I put in the hard work. I know what it's like to decide when you see a rate increase to have to figure out just how many hours of overtime does this mean I'm going to have to go to pay for this. And so, you know, being a family man, I understand the struggles of families. And then being a Christian man, I feel like that my faith is going to play a major part in how we make decisions as well.
One thing that I really pride myself on is being a great ambassador for the city of Frankfort. I think that's one of the first things you got to look at. This individual is going to be in front of governors. He can be in front of the Vice President of the United States of America. You want someone that's going to be a great ambassador for our city. I bear that on my shoulders very seriously. I don't sleep a lot at night, and I have a heck of a lot less hair than when I started this process. I worry about this community. I love this community. I take my job so seriously. And maybe one of my downfalls is I'm a type A. I'm a perfectionist. I want everything to be perfect, and I want everyone to be happy with what's going on. I know that's not possible in this job. You could have Mother Teresa up here, and you could have Kim McBarnes up here, and she couldn't keep everyone happy. But I'm a great ambassador. I'm a great listener. I believe I'm a good speaker. I believe that I can take in a complex oration or hear a difficult presentation and then listen to that, break that down, and speak that back out. And believe me, I know what it's like getting by paycheck to paycheck. When the recession hit in 2008 and my father lost his job and the medical bills were piling up and we had to sell our home because we couldn't make that mortgage, believe me, I get it. It's not fun. I'm with you.
Eric?
Are there any issues within the city that you believe are not being sufficiently addressed?
Chris?
Well, I think the one thing that I'm going to keep saying is, and we are all out on this right now, we're all in rather, and that's housing. I believe you take 60 of our historic homes around our downtown the little bungalows in the northwest and southwest side of the city. You get those homes into friendly hands, an investor that wants to come in and dump 60 or 70,000 into those, flip those somehow. One thing that my administration's proposed, and we have legislation getting ready to go to the city council now, is tax abatement for property owners. If you were to dump $30,000 into your home, you could come before the city council and get an abatement on that additional $30,000 of assessed value. That's something that I stand behind very much. Look at what we've been able to do on the corner of Clinton and Oyster Street. You know, the old Gray Ghost site that the former administration knocked down, and rightfully so. That was a vacant lot. We were able to find majestic homes, bring them in, and now a beautiful home is being built there. And that home was sold before the concrete footers were even poured. So people want to come to Frankfort, but we've got to get new housing, and we have to modernize our existing housing stock. The Senior Housing Assistance Repair Program, as the councilman said, that was bipartisan, if you will, and that's been great for our senior citizens on fixed incomes.
We're from the same party. And in fact, we're for the same team too. We're for Frankfort. I keep hitting the streets because I'm concerned that all of the money for the streets comes in that community crossing matching grant. We have money set back so that we can do it, but if we don't get that community crossing grant, like we did 2 years ago, then the only street that gets paved is one little street called Bloomer Street, and they go a whole year deteriorating. The purpose of TIF money, if you talk to the other mayors, is that you want to use it in infrastructure. So our sidewalks, they're neglected. And I want to look at this 50-50 program people aren't utilizing, and I'm really not as impressed with it as I'd like to be, to try to get these sidewalks fixed so our disabled people can actually use them to go to where they need to go to. I would like to see us continue to work in other ways in our neighborhoods and promote groups that are already working in our neighborhoods to continue to do that kind of thing and keep it up.
Okay, this question is from the audience and is for Lewis. If you are elected mayor, how will you go about bringing young college-educated professionals, and what is your plan for the employment for those young college graduates?
This sounds like a former question that we dealt with, but the college-educated young professionals, our door's going to be open. We're going to do a think tank, and we're going to talk about what kind of development does Frankfort need. I have a feeling that with us being landlocked and us being far away from Indianapolis as we are from Lafayette or Chicago, that we're going to have to look in the tech industry. And I've been pleased to find out how many young people have technology degrees and understand. So we're going to actually start targeting groups of young people that would fit the needs of what we need in development of our downtown. There was a day when what brought people in was the railroad. And it provided great jobs, and people came for those great jobs. The railroad's not providing all those great jobs anymore, and we need to find what would be the new key to our economic success. It's not going to be the $15 an hour jobs for a college graduate. It's going to have to be something a little more substantive.
Chris?
So a couple things we've already done that's already paying dividends, and people are coming back. Nickel Plate Flats and Prairie Creek Park. I met with a young engineer. She came up to my office here a few weeks ago, was from southern Indiana, and said, Mayor, I never would have moved to Frankfort had it not been for Prairie Creek Park and Nickel Plate Flats. She's a young single mother. She got herself a window view back to the north so she's able to look out over Prairie Creek Park. That's the kind of stuff we want to be hearing. Grants for Grads is another program that my administration helped sponsor. It came out of the Federal Home Loan Bank of Indianapolis, our leadership summit that we had. Getting our young graduates that come back to Frankfort $5,000 to help offset a down payment and closing costs on a home. It's a really big deal. It's a really big deal for someone of that age that's coming out of school with probably a lot of debt. And then the FFLAC kiddos, my Frankfort Future Leaders Advisory Council. Now, it's not good enough just to say we want to get our young people involved. I want to get them involved. I want to get them involved in the budgeting process, in building things in Frankfort, showing them the fruits of their labor, because they're going to be driving down the road with mom and dad saying, hey, someone actually cared about what I had to say. Someone actually gave me a budget to oversee. Maybe that place isn't good enough for me to come back.
This is another question from the audience. How do you plan to include the Hispanic population moving forward? As you look around the audience this evening, they are not here participating.
Chris?
So I know one thing that we tried doing, we had a police community meeting at the Clinton County Extension Office here about a month ago. We really worked hard with the leaders of that organization to see that we had a bigger turnout of Hispanic and Latino individuals. Unfortunately, that did not happen. I think that we have to be more open into going into places where that demographic feels comfortable. A lot of times that's church, our Catholic churches. And so also, I'd want to look to gatekeepers of that community, such people like Isaac Chavez and Leo Gonzalez and Melinda Grismer, and get feedback from them. What more can we be doing? I know one thing, I'd love to see a Latino festival, a heritage festival at the New Prairie Creek Park this fall. I think it'd be a great opportunity to show off that culture. It's a wonderful culture. It's a familial culture that mine could certainly learn from.
I spent 5 years of my life living in Mexico, Guatemala, and Honduras. And I can tell you the culture they come from is extremely suspicious of government. It's going to be difficult, but I do think that there are ways for us to include them and to bring them in together. I spent a lot of time, many of my neighbors in my neighborhood are Hispanic, and I frequently talk to them about what's going on and try to get their input into what's going on. Well, very distrustful of what goes on in politics, but the beautiful thing is we've got a whole generation that are coming through the school system, and they're very talented, very intelligent, and they are helping to shape our culture as well. My daughter, there's 22 students in her class, and 4 of them are not Hispanic. The rest of them are Hispanic, and they work together, they learn together, and I do believe that our culture, that in itself, they're playing our sports team, they're integrating with us, that's going to have a positive impact going forward.
All right, what you've been waiting for, the last question of the evening, Ken?
Okay, this is for both of you. You're both standing in front of a group of individuals who are wanting to come to Frankfort. How would you convince them to do that?
Well, I'd have to tell them my personal testimony. Why did Lewis decide to come back to Frankfort? I went away to college, I married someone from out of town, and I found Frankfort to be a beautiful place, a good place to raise my children, a good place, friendly neighborhoods. We're not going to find Mayberry, probably. My daughter asked me the other day, after watching the Andy Griffith show, Dad, can we move to Mayberry? We would happily. I think the majority of this country would move to Mayberry if we could just find it. But what we do have is we have a beautiful community, many great opportunities for people. We're a window community to Indianapolis, window community to Lafayette. If you're a Cubs fan, I'm sorry, but you're within 2.5 hours of Wrigley Field. If you're a Reds fan like I am, and the gentleman in the back, thank you very much. We're within 2.5 hours of the Great American Ballpark. It's a great community.
What time of the year is it? What time of the year is it? Spring? Okay, right here, right now. Awesome. I'd say we're in the middle of it all. Frankfort, we are in the middle of it all. We have the best people in the Bible Belt of America right here. We're hardworking individuals. If you stop in a shop and see a police officer, they're going to smile. You're going to smile at you. They're going to give you a high five and tell you to have a good day. We have some wonderful restaurants that'll just make your taste buds just simmer. And you're going to meet some of the nicest people you ever knew. I know that if you go down and you see a beautiful home restored like the Avery House, that family's going to take you through there and show you what they did. And then we have a beautiful TPA park where you can go and take your kids and see the birds, enjoy the petting zoo, enjoy the new gravity rail, and do all this in safety because we are the 8th safest city in Indiana. We have great school systems. Our housing values are going up. We have jobs that are available. If you want to be a small business owner, we'll walk you through that process too. I'll take you right over to Shan Sheridan, and we'll get you leased up in a space. Come to Frankfort.
All right, thank you. We're going to end the night with our 3 minutes of closing comments, and we'll begin with Lewis. Lewis?
Very big thank you to everyone for taking the time out of your evening to listen to what we have to say. I started out by talking about my family. On my wedding day, I want to tell you, I didn't know much about being a husband. Maybe other people had figured out. I didn't. But I did know 3 things. I knew 1, it was the right decision. I knew 2, I was 100% committed to the decision. For richer, for poorer, I wasn't going to go looking for something else or somebody else. This was, I was committed to the decision. And I knew that if my marriage was ever going to work, I'd have to surround myself with good influences, good people, godly people, and I would have to have help to make it work. And you know what? It's worked. I would tell you right now, January 1st, when I take office, I'm not going to be able to tell you every single step of every single thing because it's going to be an enormous learning curve. But I can tell you 3 things. I'm convinced it was the right decision for me to put my name in the run. I'm committed to the decision, and I will surround myself with good and godly people to try to make this work. As I've been talking to people, and I realize that we do have a divided community right now. I want to bring unity back to Frankfort, and I've repeatedly thought of Abraham Lincoln. I don't know how that guy dealt with a country torn apart, knowing that brother was going after brother, father was going after son, killing each other because they had a difference in opinion of how things should happen. Yet he knew it was the right decision, and he spoke in Baltimore. I'll never forget reading this as a teenager. He said the world has never agreed on certain subjects. The shepherd drives the wolf from the sheep's throat, and for that act, the sheep praises the shepherd as a protector of his liberty. But for the same act, the wolf denounces the shepherd as a destroyer of his liberty. The thing I've thought of so many times, he and Stephen Douglas, they debated each other a little bit like Chris and I have, all over the place, back and forth, which was the right decisions to make. But when it was all said and done, and Lincoln beat Douglas, Douglas came to the inauguration, and Lincoln took that big top hat off. He was looking for a place to lay it so he could take the oath of office, and Douglas reached his hand out, stood up, and held his hat so that he could take the oath of office. A symbolic gesture of saying, I'm going to help you put this back together. I want you to know that if, in the event that I lose Chris, I will gladly step forward figuratively and hold your top hat so we can bring this town back together. It is time for us to come together and realize, for better or worse, rich or poor, this is our community. We truly do love it. We're not looking for other places. We just want to see the very best possible. God bless you so much. God bless the city of Frankfort.
Thank you, Shan. Thank you to our media outlets and all of you for taking time out of your busy evening and schedule to be with us here this evening. I want to finish how I started, giving all the glory and praise and honor to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I humbly ask for your vote tonight in next week's May primary so that we can keep Frankfort, keep it great for families, so that we can continue to institute programs like our Senior Housing Assistance Repair Grant Program or the Wesley Manor Southside Project, who is allowing seniors on fixed incomes to age in place here in Frankfort, not just for young families. We want every family to live here in Frankfort and to thrive. I humbly ask for your vote because I want you to know that there is a cost to doing nothing. We invest in key pieces of infrastructure such as Washington Avenue or Prairie Creek Park to protect our existing jobs, to make this a fertile soil for future economic development that will increase our assessed value and drive down our tax rates. So far, just in this past year, over $200 million in private investment in our city. I humbly ask for your vote because we have balanced budgets. We've taken our city general from 2.6 to 3.1 million. We've increased our savings account by 25% since I've been in office. And finally, I humbly ask for your vote because I want to continue to keep Frankfort safe. We were just nominated the 8th safest city in Indiana. I care so much about what our warriors here in the back do, and I want to continue to give them the resources and the cost of living increases that they deserve for putting their lives on the line each and every single day. And Lewis, I want you to know that I respect you, my friend, and the same goes to you. If for some reason the vote should not go the way we think next week, I will be there for you because I do believe that our community is best by working together, and that's how God would want it to be. Folks, thank you. God bless this city, and I hope you have a great evening.
Before we get out of here tonight, we simply want to say thank you, Ken, thank you.